I'm Ishita, your host for today, and today we are doing the session on how to start with your WAT-PI preparation. So, yes, we know that the CAT results were declared super early this time, and we were not expecting it. But I think if you have a great score and are expecting any of the school calls you would want to convert, I think you should definitely start your WAT-PI preparation at this point and have that early advantage. So, just to inform you about it, we do have our WAT-PI Bootcamp by InsideIIM as well, which would be a personalized mentorship program where you would be assigned mentors who are either alumni or current students from top schools and who would be guiding you through the entire process, which would include a lot of knowledge sessions on the various domains, mock PIs, SOP reviews, and a lot more. So, the details you can check out from the link in the description. And so, let's start with today's session. So I would like to ask our panelists, so please start introducing yourselves. Nupur, you can start.
So I'm Nupur Vyas. I'm currently a PGP1 student at IIM Calcutta. And I am an engineer and I have 18 months of experience.
Got it. Ishita?
Right. Hi, everyone. I'm Ishita. I am currently the first year of the HRM program at XLRI Jamshedpur. I'm from Mumbai. I am also an engineer and I have about a year of workings.
Got it. Bhavesh?
First of all, thanks to for this opportunity. So we have very similar backgrounds. I'm also an engineer. I have about 3 years of work experience though, and I'm a first year at IIM Lucknow.
Got it. So just to give a brief background, you can tell about your CAT percentiles, the calls you had, and basically the converts. So yeah, we can start in that order. Nupur, you can start.
So I had 99.29 percentile in CAT and 99.71 in ZAT. I had calls from Bangalore, Calcutta, Lucknow, Kozhikode, Indore, FMS, and XLRI, like naming the few. And I was able to convert Calcutta, Lucknow, Indore, and like I was waitlisted in FMS, and XLRI also I was able to convert.
Got it. Yeah, Ishita?
Yeah, so I had a 96.9 in CAT and a 97.14 in SAT. Also, coming to the calls I had XLRI, I had IIM Indore, the AVM program of IIM Lucknow. I had NITI, IIT Bombay, among other CAP IIMs. And talking about converts, I converted all of them with the exception that I was waitlisted in IIM Shillong and I did not convert XLBM.
Okay. Bhavesh?
Yeah, so I had a 99.47 in the CAT, and I had calls from Ahmedabad, Lucknow. I did not get calls from Bangalore, Calcutta, Kozhikode, and Indore, but and FMS. But I had all of the other calls, all of them.
Okay, got it. So now let's start, straight to the topic. So how do you start with the WAT-PI preparation? So you can recall your journeys, like how did you start with your preparations?
I guess Bhavesh can take this up first. Because he was the link that joined us. So like we three prepared together. So I guess he will be able to, and then we will add on.
So basically, okay, let me just start this way. I sort of was looking for accountability partners to make sure that, I stayed track on my prep. And, it's an arduous journey, the GD-PI prep, there's a lot that you have to do, there's a lot of topics that you have to cover. And, probably having some of your friends, preparing with you makes it easier. So while I was looking for people, I actually found Ishita and Nupur both. So the three of us prepared together for a GD-PI prep. And I think one of the main things that we started with was, writing our autobiographies. Now, while this might sound a bit off, writing your autobiography actually helps you come up with with stories that you would be able to speak about in your interviews and come up with your qualities. So these are all going to help you ultimately in your HR answers and answering your questions. So I think that would be the very first step. And then the second part, of course, is your actual current affairs and academics. Now, the reason the three of us studied together was we're all from the computer science background. So we sort of went ahead with, we basically we had a list of current affairs topics. We divide the current affairs topics into I'd assign one current affairs topic to each of them, and we would get on a call on that day, at the end of the day, discuss it, share our opinions about that. That's one major part of it. And we would also set one particular target, for example, say operating system, because we were from computer science backgrounds, and we would finish some chapters from from the operating system syllabus. That's basically how we kickstarted up there.
Got it.
Nupur, Ishita, please add anything. I find this anything.
I guess, yeah, just that was that only. And another thing was that it was important to stay on track. Like we also created a schedule earlier, like only that what all we need to cover. So so we had a timeline and plan. So we tried to follow that. So and hence it kept us on track.
Yeah, so we, I think, started like our prep together as a group somewhere around Feb, and a lot of us had calls in the middle, right? So we prioritized the topics that were more important. So, say because we're all from computer science backgrounds, there are some subjects that are more important, like say operating systems or database management systems, instead of subjects that come towards the end of the syllabus or are lesser important. So we prioritize those topics so that at least for the first few calls that all of us had, we are prepared with at least some part of our syllabus if we could not cover the entire thing. Apart from that, the starting point, as Bhavesh mentioned, the autobiography helps primarily because when you prepare HR answers in silos, you prepare it for one specific situation. You are not really thinking cohesively about your entire life, but writing it down, writing every single thing that you can remember that you have done, achieved, that you have failed at, it helps put together an entire picture because there are a lot of things that you simply don't remember, right, when you're thinking in an interview. So writing that all down helps you recollect, go back to your autobiography and maybe pick answers from there. Even if there are questions that you have not prepared for, it helps connect basically your story together. So that is, I think, one major point. And now considering it's very early on in the prep, it's still December and the calls are yet to come, this is a good time to start because you don't need to wait for anything, right? It's your life story. You can always write it down. So it's a very good starting point, and then you can move on to say current affairs and all of the other things.
Right. So that brings me to the next question. So exactly what kind of questions are asked in a B-School interview? So if you could just list them down, divide it into topics, maybe.
So maybe I'll take this up, and if there is anything that I have missed, maybe both of you can head that on, because since we all prepared together, I mean, we know what all of us did. So the first major bucket is everything about yourself. So like we were talking about the autobiography, know your life in its entirety and know the good points and the bad points. Don't just focus on your achievements because it's not, I mean, they do not really want Olympic medal, gold medalist. And they just want somebody who's real and who has stories which are very like understandable and aspirational in an interview. Apart from that, apart from the bucket about yourself, the second major bucket would be academics. Even if you have a lot of work ex, we'd all suggest to go back to your academics because we have heard of situations of people even with 3+ years of work ex being asked very core academic questions. Apart from that, there will be questions in your interview as to what you are aspiring to do with an MBA or what specialization you look to go in. So say you want to do marketing, you should have at least a basic idea of marketing. So nobody's expecting you to be a pro at it, but at least the fundamentals of marketing you should be aware. Similarly, for any domain that you pick. So all of us during our interviews, I think we were preparing for Prodman, and we had discussed that what does a product manager do, what happens in a product manager role, or what Prodman entails, and having that sort of discussion with your peers also helps you form an opinion. Apart from that, the fourth major bucket I can think of is current affairs and general knowledge. So for current affairs, it's newspapers and your YouTube videos, and general knowledge is broader, but you can stick to specific topics which are available on your common channels. And yeah, these are the four major buckets. I think if there's anything I have missed out, you can add.
Adding on to what Ishita said, so probably also know your city and everything well. So because my Bangalore interview was all about my city. I'm from Nagpur. The whole interview revolved around that. So hence it's good to know about your city also. Like be thorough with everything. And also another major thing I would like to add is be very thorough with your hobbies. like it should reflect that you are passionate about that. The interviews, especially professors, love seeing you talk about what you're passionate about. So, and it also reflects good on your side. So these two, and also another thing I would like to add is mathematics. So mathematics and puzzles. So especially in Calcutta, they was a lot on statistics. So I was asked probability and all questions. And even in my Indore interview, they asked me a lot of mathematical questions and puzzles. So it's not a, but yeah, like it's good to be prepared. And especially stats is something we do not do for CAT. So we should be prepared for that.
Got it. Bhavesh, you would want to add something?
Yeah, I think that pretty much sums it up. Like Ishita mentioned, they're not looking for Olympic gold medalists. All you need to be, I think, all they're looking for is your qualities, your few achievements, and maybe about how passionate you're about doing an MBA and why you want to do it. It's not just for the money. That I think pretty much sums it up.
Right. So, because you already covered a bit about how to prepare for HR questions in the autobiography part. So, let us come to how to prepare for current affairs. So, how do you stay updated with so much going around?
So for current affairs, we had a very set system in place for the three of us. So every day, like I think we mentioned previously, we would set one topic or one agenda that is from current affairs or maybe even a GK topic. And one of us, so if all of us would prepare one topic each. So at the end of the day, we'd have three new topics that none of us know about. And at the end of the day, around 10 o'clock, we'd get on a Zoom call and we'd each discuss what each of us prepared. So, and we not discuss purely facts about, so while our interviews were going on, the Russia-Ukraine thing was the Russia-Ukraine war was a very major event at the time. So while we are discussing, we're not specifically discussing facts because facts are available in any newspaper and anybody can just blurt out facts, but more so we are discussing our opinions about what is going on, which helps you develop your own opinion, which is what interviewers are looking for, whether you can think for yourself. So that is how majorly we structured our current affairs. So, and also where we discuss every topic, we also maintained a Google Doc where we entered the major facts of whatever we discussed. So at the end of our prep, we had around a 50-60 page doc with all the topics we've covered. And before every interview, we just go back to the doc and revise all the topics. So we knew whatever we had prepped. And in case, say, a question comes up like discuss a geopolitical issue, we had specific geopolitical issues that we had discussed among ourselves, and we can just talk about that in the interview. So, yeah, time is strength.
Got it. Nupur?
Yeah, that's it. And I guess it's helpful, like it's useful to stay updated by reading the news, and probably people can refer to material from, some Drishti IS or any GK or current affairs YouTube channel, like that also helps.
Got it. Now, a lot of people have these questions that how do you tackle questions on if you have lower CATs or a gap year? So how do you justify them in your interview? So would you suggest anything on that?
Go on.
Yeah. So low CADs, right? I think see, the main thing, the way I think of it is that low CADs is not actually a problem in your CV. I think the interviewers what they try to see is what other activity you were involved in while your CADs were basically not up to the mark. So while low CADs may be grilled upon, it's not again, like Ishita mentioned, they're not looking for Olympic gold medalists. So they're not really looking for someone with very high CADs as such. They just need you to justify why you have lower CADs and a proper justification. Say, for example, you were doing an internship at the same time, or maybe you were doing a part-time job at the same time. I think that's a pretty good justification for that. But yeah, that's I think that's pretty much it. That you need to have a good justification for your low CADs. But the fact that it sets a fear in our mind when we read our interview experiences about the lower CADs or about people maybe having a gap year, for example, that did be grilled upon that. And I think that's a major source of our trouble. But all you have to realize is that they might grill you on that, but they're only just trying to put you under pressure to see how you'll be able to justify it. And they are not really against you for that matter.
Got it. Nupur, you want to add something?
Yeah, and also I just want to add that we have people over here. Like I guess all of us have friends who have had gap years, and hence I just want to put it out that like we shouldn't worry about the gap year. Like just justify it properly, and interviewers like will understand.
Right. And just one thing to add here, when you have low cats, there are majorly two cases. Either you were doing something else at the time where you have a proper justification and you can always talk about that. Or in the case that maybe you were just not mature enough or sincere enough at the point of time where you maybe don't have a proper justification per se, be honest about it. It is okay. Like we said, we are allowed to make mistakes. It's not like your life has to be a perfect line. So it's okay if you have maybe not done well at some point in your life, but be honest about it and display sincerity to do better in whatever you are attempting to do in an MBA. So as long as you are able to convey that properly to the interviewer, I think it's fine. There is no need to be afraid of having either low cats or gap years because, like Nupur mentioned, there are such sort of people in all of our colleges. And these people are doing extremely well in college. So it does not matter at all. It just depends on how you are able to justify it and talk about it. That's it.
Got it. Now let's come to some of the very commonly asked questions in like these school interviews. The common HR questions like how do you introduce yourself? So would you give any like framework for that? Like what all things you should include? How long it should be?
So I'd say, tell me about yourself. Probably almost always the first question asked in every interview should be about 100 seconds. And the way tell me about yourself should be structured, or ideally how we structured it was, once we got our life story sorted and we had talking points. So for example, I had a weight loss journey that I wanted to talk about, that I wanted my interview to pick up because I had some qualities that I wanted to show there, which they probably like. So I structured it in such a way that I got my story right, and then I captured that all into a pressy and made a 100-second introduction. And I made sure that I stress on the points where I want the interviewer to pick things up. These points I call hooks basically, that the interview would focus on and start asking questions from that. Take my interview to an area which I'm comfortable with.
Right. Got it. Nupur?
Yeah, and also try to weave a story around it. Like it shouldn't be very repetitive, or like it shouldn't look like you have, learned it by heart and you are just putting it out. Like weave a story so that they know you and they are interested in your story. And like even I put out some hooks, like I wanted to focus and like there were some achievements I wanted to highlight. So I put it up in my like tell me about yourself only because you might not get a chance to talk about it like at a later stage. So hence it's always good to have. And also another thing is have tell me about yourself of like 30 seconds, 60 seconds, and as Bhavesh says, 100 seconds. So because sometimes interviewers like specify a time limit. Like you should be very clear that if it's 30 seconds, so what all you need to talk about. So it's always good to have all those.
Yeah, like I was also going to mention the 30, 60, 90 introduction thing. It's very important. And also, while your interview is going on, being able to gauge the atmosphere of the interview. So if you feel like you're attempting to go for a 90-minute intro and you can see that the interview is getting good, learn how to cut it down and wrap up quickly so that you've kept them hooked and you have not just drawn out about your life for a good 90 seconds. Apart from that, again, like Nupur mentioned, your introduction should not seem like you're just reading out your CV that I did this and I did this and I did that. Frame a structure around it, and whatever you feel that again, like might not come up at the in the later part of the interview, or something that you really want to talk about, try to put it at the end of the introduction. Again, the panelists are very smart, so there is a chance that they will totally ignore that, which has happened with all of us. It will totally ignore that and ask you some other question. But if you have said something that piques their interest, it is always possible that they pick that up and your interview revolves around that, which becomes a very win-win situation for you. So if you can just structure your intro in a way that everything you say in your intro firstly should be very thought out, and secondly, it should everything you say you should have further stories on that, so that in case you pick any part of the introduction, it's going to be a good interview because everything that you have mentioned you know about properly. That's it.
Got it. we have an audience question. So it's some points to impress. So basically, what points to include to impress the interviewers, something like that.
I think it's very subjective and there's no one solution, to impress them. But I feel interviews really love people who are passionate and who are honest. In my interviews, I have seen that my honesty has played a major role. And like whatever I knew, I told them that I know this, and whatever I did not. And like I was very blunt and I did not hide anything. And also, second thing is like if you're passionate about anything, keep it like display it, express it, and like especially professors love seeing people who are passionate. And I think these two are like major. Like if you're even passionate about football or like music, like just say it out. Like I'm a huge fan of the Beatles, so I actually told that in my interview. In one of my interviews, the interview picked that up, and we talked about the Beatles. So yeah, like and so it actually helps a lot. And Bhavesh and Ishita can add.
All right. I think the first point fairly covers it. Passion towards what you already have, the hobbies, and also sincerity towards what you're attempting to do, which is enter an MBA college. So always for whatever interview you are going for, read up about the college thoroughly and read a few nuances about the college, like niche facts, which maybe not everybody knows, which shows your interest in actually joining the college because like panelists are also taking multiple interviews in a day. So you need to be able to display to them that this is something you actually are passionate about and you're not just another person in the herd. So to make that, it's a very good point if you can display firstly passion about your hobbies, etc., and sincerity towards the MBA and towards the college. I think that works.
Got it.
One thing I'd like to add is about the qualities. While you're speaking about, your any answers that you're speaking about, say you're talking about an incident in your life, I think your more focus should be on your learnings from that incident rather than on the incident itself, and how that changed you as a person or what qualities in you that brought out. So that is, the qualities that it helped you develop. So I think that's one of the main things that basically showcases to the interviewer that you possess these qualities.
Got it. So at this point, for the people who have joined in like right now, I would just like to inform you all about a WAT-PI Bootcamp by InsideIIM. So here you would be matched with a mentor who would have a similar profile like yours. So for example, if you are a CA would be assigned to you, who would be able to guide you on forming your HR answers, your academic questions, and a lot of knowledge sessions and mock PIs. And to tell you a bit about our results from last year, so more than 87% of the students who enrolled and converted at least one of their top 3 calls. And you should definitely check out the details from the link in the description if you're looking for a WAT-PI guidance. So let's come to the next question, the next most common question asked, which is why MBA? And a lot of people like struggle to find an appropriate answer, which might be unique and doesn't sound too cliche. So how do you suggest to go about that?
So I think a lot of the panelists also know this, that a lot of students who are coming in don't really have a very clear picture. All of us know that this is a better career option and it's a better life opportunity, which is why a lot of us are coming. And it's okay if you have not thought out 20 years in advance that you want to be like the CPO or the CHRO of a firm. It is okay if you don't have that sort of planning in place. But in terms of specifics, so what all of us did is that we connected what we've already done in our backgrounds to how it will play out in an MBA. So like I said, all of us were talking about Prodman in our interviews. All of us have computer science background. So because we have built actual apps and a Prodman role involves actually working with people who build those apps, it was a very direct link and we could bring that sort of background that we already have into why we want, and making that sort of connection is very useful in interviews because your interviews also want to see that it is a link and it's not something that you're randomly doing just for, like Bhavesh said, the money. So as long as you can build that connect, I think it's more or less fine. You don't have to have an exceptional answer because mostly everybody is giving generic answers. But as long as you can just build your own story around it, it's fine.
Got it.
Also, like whatever stream you would select, like be it marketing, shortman, as Ishita like already mentioned, be very thorough with it. Like if it's marketing, so know the basic 4 Ps and maybe the 7 Ps and all the marketing principles. If it's broadman, so know the basics of maybe not circles, but like what is product manager, difference between product manager, project manager, program manager, and like these are very commonly asked questions. So be thorough with all that. So it kind of backs it up that yeah, you are genuinely interested.
So, as Nupur is saying, one of the things that helps with this is connecting with people who are already working in the industry or with seniors. So, I had actually connected with one of my seniors who was working as a product manager and actually got the practical applications of how an MBA would help him. IBA helped him in working as a product manager, and that's how we got a story straight about connecting our background to MBA to product management, and that sort of led on to a YMBA.
Yeah, just building from Bhavesh, just one extra thing. So, what a few of us did was before our interview calls, we called up people who are currently studying in the college, and we asked for how their experience has been in college. And with that, we could build a little college-specific answer. So, like I said, it always helps if you mention your interest in the college, and if you have actually reached out to people and spoken to them, it very clearly signifies your interest. So, if you can do that, it will always help you build a better answer rather than just stating generic facts that are there on the college website.
Got it. I would just ask our audience to put in any questions in the chat if you have it. I'll ask the panelists. So the next question from my side is, would you have any other general tips which you would like to share, or any peculiar experience which you might have had, which you would like to share in any of the interviews?
All right, general advice for me. So since I said this was my second attempt, the first attempt of my interview prep, I did it individually. I did whatever I could find online in terms of current affairs and acads, and it did not go well. I think what worked out for me this time around was Nupur and Bhavesh, because we did everything together. It helped having a tribe of people who are also going through the same interview experiences, who also share the stress and like the good moments, bad moments. All of us have had good and bad interviews. So it helps having those people around. So firstly, I mean, if you can find your tribe, it helps having people around. And yeah, I mean, that's fun. Yeah, secondly, in terms of unique experiences, so in ACADS, generally people think that if you read up about one of your favorite subjects or one or two, it is enough and you just go for the interview. In one of my interviews, I was asked about 6 favorite subjects. So do not just stick and restrict yourself. Ki, "Okay, I will do just one." Even if you have a lot of work ex, do not say I will do one subject and I will be fine, because it depends on what the interviewer's background also. So some of us were asked very specific questions on, I think, stats, and which, though we have studied in engineering, is not something we focused on as much. So it is important to go at least over the basics of every subject so that you don't look very blank, because it sends a slightly negative impression if you do not know something you studied for 4 years. So that's about it.
Okay.
Apart from that, adding on to what Ishita said, be thorough with your company also. In front of my interviews, they asked me about my company, like even the scam or like whatever background story was, or where are the headquarters and everything. So be thorough with it, like know your company well, and also know about your, some HR questions based on the companies, like how you dealt with like some typical situation, like how did you convince the team, how did you convince your manager. Like they might not be asked, but it's like, and if you have work experience, then it's good to have that. And secondly, if you're coming from a business family, so please have some knowledge about your father's or like family business, because in one of my interviews I was asked about my like family business, like, and it was kind of in depth. So it's good to know. Maybe you are not interested in that, but like it does not look good that you have been in the family for like 20 plus years and you don't know anything about it. So that point. And also be ready for any surprises, uh, I like, and most of the time the interviews don't even start with "tell me about yourself." Like they might start with a work experience, and one interview was like absolutely random. They were like that you look very nice and you won't be able to, survive in the corporate world. So, and like they were kind of just pushing me on the edge, and like they were just trying to judge me and like just see how I come up with an answer. So yeah, so just like don't get baffled by it and just keep your calm. And I guess that will be it.
Got it.
Just
Bhavesh?
the same things both of them mentioned. Find your tribe, like Ishita mentioned. This was my fourth CAT attempt. My other three CAT attempts hadn't gone as great. So I think one of like Ishita was mentioning, this I think was the silver bullet. So this was what helped all of us probably get into our dream colleges. Number one. Number two, I think apart from knowing about your company and about yourself, one of the things probably is also knowing about the colleges, because I had this peculiar experience and I think multiple interviews. I think five of my interviews mostly revolved around IIM Ahmedabad. So I had an Ahmedabad call, and every time they'd ask me what are the calls you had, I mentioned Ahmedabad, and my interview revolved around why Ahmedabad is such a good college, and why what do you find in Ahmedabad that you would be joining IIM Ahmedabad, leaving our college. So that I think you probably need to have answers for that as well. So but many of my interviews did revolve around that. And I think one of the things we missed in the HR questions part, which I just like to add, is that apart from creating your autobiography, once you have the incident ready, what all of us did was we had an Excel sheet ready of let's say the 50 most commonly asked HR questions. And it was an Excel sheet. We used to write down our answers there, and we did peer reviews. Basically, all the three of us, we used to look at each other's sheet and probably write down the cross questions, which would help the so it would basically help the others go back to their answer, iron out the chinks in their armor, and basically structure it better. So you have it end to end. And also, we not only that, one of another thing is that you should also prepare for the cross questions always. But once you've written down an answer, let's say, there are probably cross questions that may be asked. For example, from very close, I was asked about BMI. I was asked about BMI calculation. So it was an incident which I had mentioned in every interview. So they did ask me about BMI. They asked me about the different diets, what keto diet involves, for example. So anything around that and cross questions around that is something that you should prepare for.
Got it.
Yeah,
And
it's
so
just
yeah, so
sorry. Yeah, just like that, a couple things. So as to what Nupur mentioned again, getting not flustered in interviews is extremely important because you can study everything under the sun, and your first question in your interview will be something completely different. Like for example, I studied weeks of ACADS and current affairs and all of that, and I go to the interview and they ask me what is the difference between an egg and a manager. And at that point, you have no idea what to say because this is not something you have ever considered preparing for. But it is always important to keep your cool and understand that maybe they have some rationale behind asking the question and do the best you can, not to give up at that point in the interview that this is not going well, and to have a practice of not getting flustered. What my suggestion would be is that give as many mocks as possible. If you do it with the coaching institute, if you do it with your peers, you do it juniors, seniors, anybody you can find who's ready to willing to take a mock interview for you, do it because it genuinely helps get that fear away. So I'm somebody who's not a big fan of interviews, but we did a lot of interviews amongst ourselves, and that helps basically build your confidence so that when you are faced with weird questions, even on the actual day, you know you've done this before and you can do this again. So that's one. Yeah.
just adding on to one mistake I did was I pushed the interviews till like the last minute because I thought I was underprepared. I wasn't prepared, but you are like never prepared for any interview. So start giving interviews from right now, so you will able to see how much you have improved. So even if you don't know ACADS or anything, I would say like just start giving mock interviews. Mock interviews are extremely helpful, and also to ask your friends to take stress interviews also. Like I remember one incident where Bhavesh like took a extremely stressful interview of like mine, and like I was in the like it was really stressful, but I think it made me ready for any real life situation, like because my MBA interview was very stressful. Like they asked me some like literally random things, so yeah, I was prepared for it because I had gone through similar things. So yeah, it actually helps. Mock interviews like are really helpful.
Got it. We have another audience question from Anupriya. So, how do you stay composed during an interview?
All right. So going first, like I said, I mean, what you can do before right now starting now is again, like I said, do mock interviews. It helps. You will not understand that in the first couple, but when you actually sit for your interview, you will understand how whatever you've learned through your mock interviews has actually helped maintain your cool and your calm in the actual interview. And secondly, I suggest when on the actual day of your interview, for maybe half an hour or 1 hour before the interview, do not panic revise, do not panic do anything, because I tried doing that, and in the end, once the interview starts, then you're, because I'm not sure how it's happening this year, but it was all online for us last year, and the video calls just start suddenly and you're suddenly sitting in front of the interviewer. So it's important to have that frame of mind where you're prepared for the interview to start at any second. So just keep your calm, do something you like, listen to songs or whatever, but do not have that sort of panicky revision going on at the last minute.
Right. Any other tips? Nupur, Bhavesh.
I think if you're well prepared, you are automatically, kind of cool and calm. So even if something, the interview asks some random question, you know that you can handle it, and eventually they might be asking you something that you know, or so hence it helps. And also mock interviews, because if you give mock interviews with a lot of people, like you will have different flows, like because we all are different individuals, we might pick up some different clues, and we'll talk about all that. So hence that also helps. So you're ready for everything.
So one of the things I myself did, and I suggested Ishita and Nupur as well, was thinking of your interviewer as your uncle or aunt, a very really distant uncle or aunt who's just trying to know more about you. So it helps basically, it helps you calm yourself down. Just make sure to, that there are always questions that you'll not be able to answer in an interview. And the interviewer is basically trying, is your friend. He or she basically wants to admit you to the college. That frame of mind helps. And secondly, knowing that, no matter what questions they ask, they also know that there is a limit to how much, a candidate might know. For example, as Ishita mentioned, the six favorite subjects, that was basically just to induce pressure. That was basically used to induce stress in her. Nobody would probably expect you to know six subjects in and out. They'd obviously expect you to know the basics of it since you've been doing it from a long time, but not in and out. So you can prepare for like three subjects in and out and leave the others to, understand at the surface level. But yeah, that's
Got it. We have one more audience question from Raguraj. He's asking, what are the questions that can be asked on work experience?
I'll let the work experience people go first.
Okay, so be thorough with whatever work you do. So as I'm a computer science engineer, so they even ask me about like what language I use and like what work I do. Like I was mostly in the data engineering part, so be thorough with it. Also, please do not use jargons, because interviews don't understand that and they get bored. Put it in simple words and tell them, and like the first, most important thing would be to tell them that the work you did is very impactful, and also break the story in a different, like speak about the technical aspect, then also speak about the strategic aspect, like yeah, you interacted with a lot of stakeholders and all that. uh, and like there's no particular also the interview, like questions on work ex build upon what like what you answer. So first question would be generic, like tell me about your work experience, like or what work did you do at whatever place, and then they kind of, well, if they're interested, then they might ask like in detail. I guess, yeah, for me it was this. Maybe Bhavesh can add something more.
another thing is know in and out about the industry that you're working in. So I had my work experience in Optum, which caters to the US healthcare ecosystem. And don't ever assume that your interviewers probably might not know about the US. For example, something that is peculiar like the US healthcare ecosystem, because I was asked in my Ahmedabad interview about prior authorization, and that is something, prior authorization is something that someone probably from who's not worked in that ecosystem might not know. So don't ever assume that your interviewer does not know that. The panelists are very smart, and they do know these things. So know in and out about the industry, the technological trends that are changing your industry, and what implications for example, AI, VR, AR might have on an industry.
Got it.
Right. So just a couple things maybe I can add here. So while I went into my interviews, I was barely 5 or 6 months into my job. So I did not think that I will get a lot of heavy job-oriented questions. But I did get asked a few. And what I realized in these questions is that it's just so you will always know what the work you've done and what you've worked on. But what they are looking for more than what you have done is the kind of impact you have created. So in one of my interviews, what they really stressed upon and what they really wanted to understand is what impact the work I am doing is having on the company and on the client. So whenever you're framing your work ex answers, I always suggest framing it in a way that signifies what the impact your work has done and not merely the work you have been doing as such. Secondly, again, like I think somebody mentioned, do not use jargon. I mean, it might seem very obvious to you because you have been working in the same field for, say, 2 or 3 years, but it might not be very obvious to the interviewer. So always peer review your work ex answers with friends who are not from the same background, so that if there's something that's not comprehensible, maybe you can switch that to simpler language, and always keep your answers short and simple so that they understand what you've actually done. Thirdly, again, know about your industry. So I worked on Salesforce, but apart from Salesforce, I was asked about a lot of other CRM platforms and a lot of those things. So it's important to not really know not only know what you have worked on, but also how the industry around it revolves. What are the new trends? What's coming up? I was asked about other popular CRM platforms, what's working for them, what's not working for them. So it's important to know all of that as well. And another last thing is that if you are going for a specialization focused interview, so for example, if you're going for an XLRI HR interview, know the HR practices and the policies of your organization. If you're going for a marketing interview, say at SPGen, understand how your organization functions in that aspect, so that if you can link that, again, it's always important to build connections in your stories. And if you can do that, you automatically come across as a better candidate. So,
Got it. We have one more question from Radha. So, any tips on the types of certificate courses we can do in order to compensate the grad scores? So, any recommendations on certificate courses?
So for certificate courses, my suggestion would be that don't do it for the certificate per se, because the certificate is not really going to help anything unless you actually learn something out of the course and you can actually talk about it in the interview. So, I mean, I think the courses depend on whatever you did study in your undergrad. So if you can find a topic that interested you maybe in your undergrad, find a certificate course on that and actually do the course, understand the nuances, and make sure that whatever you have done is a topic you actually can talk about in the interview, because just having a certificate holds absolutely no value. So yeah.
Yeah, adding on to that, and if you are coming from an engineering background and aiming for marketing or finance sector per se, so probably it's good to, like do a basic course on finance or marketing, so that even shows your interest and can probably justify the gap.
Got it. A question from Midhansh. Any tips to work on confidence?
I think mock
As
interviews.
Ishita, yeah, I was going to say the same.
I think mock interviews are the most helpful because you kind of get used to it. Like even I was very underconfident, but like I started giving a lot of mock interviews, and in the end it was like, okay, yeah, like I don't know, it just happened, and I was confident in every interview. Like after like 2-3 initial interviews.
Also, maybe practicing in front of the mirror helps for some people, so that you can see how you present yourself, or if the interviews are happening online, maybe record yourself on camera and see how you're presenting the answers. It always helps then when you say the same answers again in the interviews. It helps because you've already prepared it and you know how it sounds.
Got it. Vedant is also asking what to do if the interviewer keeps interrupting, and how to keep him engaged without coming across as rude.
I think, I mean, all of us have had maybe one or two interviews that went like this. Understand that this is not about you. The interviewer probably has an agenda in mind. The first thing you need to remember is that even in such situations, it's important to not lose your calm or to not get stressed. The interviewer is not particularly not interested in what he's trying to say. Maybe he's just trying to nudge you in a different direction. So, take those hints. I think all they're trying to test in such situations where they're constantly interrupting you and they're not is not specifically because they're not interested in what you're saying, but they're trying to see how you can handle the situation and how can you handle the pressure. So what comes across best in the situation is if you don't lose your calm and just answer every question thrown at you to the best of your ability. I think that works.
Got it. We have one more question. When asked about a subjective question, does having a very strong opinion come off as rude? So should you be like presenting your strong opinions, or should you like remain neutral? What would you say that?
I think it also depends on the topic. I feel if it's political topic, so it's never like, because you don't know what alignment the interview might have. So it's better to stay neutral. But it is something on the economic side, and you have facts and figures to back it up. Like, be it like, even if it is subjective, if it's like, okay, you have opinions, but you might have valid opinions and like logical reasoning. So if you're able to justify it, I guess it's okay to have strong opinions. But when it comes to politics, I don't think it's a good idea. Like, but it's my personal.
Got it. Any would you like to add anything, Ishita, Bhavesh?
Similar things, anything that is generally considered as controversial, trying not to bring it up in the interview or in the interview at all. And if it does come up, try to maintain a very diplomatic stance, because even if you do have strong opinions, an interview is not the place to really go expressing your strong opinions, because it is always possible that the interviewer is not on the same page as you, and that might play off against you. So apart from that, in like Nupur mentioned, if it's suppose an objective topic on which you have subjective opinions, like if you're really passionate about something, then you can always have strong opinions on that, provided you have proper backing for it, that works. But in things that are generally considered controversial, it's best to just be diplomatic.
Got it. So I think we don't have any new audience questions. So if you would like to add anything, you can say, and then we'll conclude the session.
All I just have to say is that, I mean, if you are going through the process this year, we all understand how stressful it is. We've been there, done that. The important thing is to maintain your calm. It's going to be a very hectic 3-4 months, but at the end, it's all worth it. So just maintain your calm, be consistent, read newspapers every day, because while your interview comes, catching up on 4 months of news is not possible. So remain consistent, do your ACADS, revise before every interview, and it will go well. Even if an interview does not go well, understand that there are a lot of external factors at play, maybe. So it is not always a function of purely a preparation. So do not get demotivated at any point in the process. Even if, say, a couple interviews have gone badly, there is always hope. So yeah, that's about it.
I think, yeah, and I guess consistency is the key, and also like, if it's possible, do find friends, because like I found Ishita and Bhavesh, and it's like thanks to both of them that I was able to crack it. And like, you might get like, I guess in the process there might be a lot of ups and downs, so, and hence you need people to stay with you.
Got it. Vedhansh is asking, any suggestions if two interview dates coincide, and so what to do in such situations?
Okay, firstly, you're in a very fortunate place. But if so, a lot of colleges, so it honestly depends on what college dates are coinciding. I think among us also we had a couple dates coinciding. So it depends. Some colleges agree to reschedule their interviews, so you will have to drop in a mail to the college and see what can be done. If both colleges are absolutely steadfast and they are refusing to change the dates, then I think, I mean, it's just bad luck, and you have to make your choices at that point.
Yeah, maybe if they can't change the dates, try like push them to change the timing. Because even I had given like 2 interviews in the same day, and there was just a gap of like an hour or two. So maybe like, so I guess they're that accommodating. They might just give you like might interview initially like in the list. So, yeah.
Okay, so Shivam and Raguraj are again asking about how to face questions on low academics. So I guess you have already covered that, but if you would just like to tell in brief. Yeah, anyone can just
Sorry.
yeah.
So lower CADs, as I was saying, you don't really have to be worried about the lower CADs as long as you can justify what you were doing at that particular point of time, right? They are not really looking for people who have really, really higher CADs, who have really, who have really done really well in their undergraduate or in the 10th and 12th. They're mostly just looking for people who have some sort of consistency, not only in their studies, because see, MBA interviews, there are many things that are checked in your MBA interviews, and ACADS is just one part of it. So if you can justify your low ACADS with something else that you were doing, maybe sports, maybe anything else that you were involved in, I think that's a pretty good justification, and it wouldn't, your score, your PI score would probably wouldn't take a hit because of that.
Yeah, and just like to reiterate what I said before, if in a case where you cannot justify it, if you cannot justify what you have done, justify what you will do. So make sure that you have at least one of the justifications in place, because you need to have something to show that you are not going to repeat the same thing. Because again, Bschools, most of your panelists will be professors who are very academically inclined. So it is important to show to them that you are passionate about learning and you're not in solely for the placements. So it also matters to them what you will actually learn and assimilate out of your 2 years in B school. So as long as you can justify that, even if you have not maybe done academically well in the past, you have, say, a very good CAT score, or you have done something in the recent past which shows maybe an upward trend in that graph, it's more than enough. Just clarify that properly and it should suffice.
Got it. So yeah, I think we don't have any audience questions now. So thank you so much for joining in, guys. I think it was a very okay. We have a question. How to answer if you had a lot of backlogs during graduation and took extra year to graduate?
Again, I think similar lines. It's somewhat the same thing as lower CADs. If you have a specific reasons, it may be health issues, family issues. If you have a particular reason for having backlogs, you can always mention that in the interview and hope that the interviewer is understanding. Apart, if you do not, then show the progress you've done since, maybe in your work, maybe in the entrance exams that you've just given, or in your understanding of what you're going to do in the MBA curriculum. And that is one way in which you can maybe compensate for not having done well in the past.
Got it.
Probably just accept that, you probably did not do that well in your undergraduate, and sort of try to justify, like Ishita mentioned, what you'll be doing in the future and how you're trying to make it better.
And what is also a little important in the situation is humility. So when we say justify the situation, but don't really go and justify your actions. That was not possible for me and this and that. I understand that if it is your fault, it is okay to accept it, because again, we all have weaknesses, and we all maybe have not done well at some point in our past. So it's okay to have had that sort of background. Do not get defensive about your answers if the interviewer is cross-questioning too much. Be humble, accept it, and just explain how you're planning on bettering it, and it should be enough.
Got it. We have one more question. The question says, I have completed Masters in Commerce and now I have applied for MBA. So what is the best answer I can give for why double Masters?
Maybe firstly, either find the dissimilarities between your all your masters and the MBA you're planning on doing now. So if your masters on commerce was a more generic one, or if you're looking at a specific specialization in MBA, you can always mention about how it will add to your knowledge repertoire, or how it will help develop you, or how it will help land you in the position in your career that you actually aspire to be at. You basically just have to draw a connection. It is, I mean, completely okay to have two masters. Having a lot of knowledge is never going to be a bad thing in an MBA interview. So that's fine. It's having two masters. I mean, there are a lot of people, I'm pretty sure in all of our colleges, who already have a master's degree. It's just important, again, like I've mentioned, to build a connection as to why you want to have another 2 years of education and how it will help in your long-term or your short-term goals.
Got it. Medhanj in the audience is saying, to sum up, we should have a reasonable justification for our actions. So yeah, I think that's perfectly sums it up. So yeah, I think we have come to the end of it. Thank you so much, guys, for joining. Thanks, Nupur, Ishita, Bhavesh. It was a very insightful discussion, and we will keep having such sessions more on this channel on WAT-PI and other exams as well. So do subscribe if you are new. And as I've told before, that we have our WAT-PI Bootcamp by InsideIIM, which is a personalized mentorship program from Bschools students and alumni. And to tell you about the results, more than 87% of the students who enrolled last year converted one of their top 3 calls. So you should definitely give it a try if you are looking for WAT-PI guidance and are looking for which institute to enroll. And all the details are there in the link in the description, so do check it out. Thank you so much, guys, for joining. Good